Oh, I think we're going right into it. I accidentally pressed stream. We just see if we are going. There we go. Okay. So today, we are going to go over some of the CSS stuff from freeCodeCamp, doing the responsive web design course. And so, we're just going to go on over. So we did this one on the last stream, the cat photo app, which of course you remember. We built this one over the weekend. I did some other stuff over the weekend as well. And I'll actually show you this, the cafe menu. This was decent. It was pretty quick too. So if you're wanting to do it, definitely do it. Let's just go. As always, when we are not connected to parcel or anything. Whoops. Live server. Oh shit. Poop. Why are you doing this? There we go. Of course, if you run into that problem, Control C, reset it. There we go. It's just making a little menu. That's all. Little menu. Don't know why it's looking funny like that. It wasn't doing that earlier, but that's fine. That is fine. I must have screwed something up along the way. It was working earlier. Don't know. Maybe it's because I did that. Let me just see. Close the terminal. New terminal. Yeah, weird. Okay. That doesn't make any sense. Alright, well, this should all be centered, and I don't know why it's not doing that. What we can do when that happens, I'm just going to go back into here. See, it's supposed to look like that. Don't know why it's not doing that. We'll just copy paste everything again. Maybe I accidentally deleted something when I was setting everything up. Who knows? Who knows? Let's just do this real quick. That's going to annoy me if I don't fix it. There we go. And the CSS styles, I guess, as well. Oops. That was down to menu. Oh, this song almost sounds like the Doors. HR down. Paste it. Oh, come on. Why are you doing this? There we go. Image. It should all be good. So save. Save. Still not doing it. Weird. Okay. I know what to do. In here. Boop, 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 boop. Section. It's not taking it properly for some reason. Just strange. Oh, this is why it's. I want to see something. No, I didn't do anything. I think it's just VS Code, possibly. But yeah, so we did that. Make that. It's pretty Pretty simple, quick. And then what we're going to do today is we're going to go back and build a set of markers. So we'll just close this one off. There we go. Of course, we're going to want to make our index.html and our styles.css. There we go. Again, do that, enter, everything's set up, so let's do this. Okay, so we're going to be building these colored markers. Looks like we'll be learning some shadow. I don't know if those shadows are the same color, but it looks like they might be. I am colorblind, so it makes it a little harder. In the previous projects, as you've seen in the previous projects, web pages should start with a doc-type HTML, of course. So we're just going to actually copy paste. This is why I wanted to do that. Oh, and we're just going to do this, that, and see if it takes it all. Boom. Nest a head element, body element. Add a body element as well. Remember that the title element gives search engines extra information about the page. It also displays the content of the title element in 2 more ways. In the title bar when the page is open, in the browser tab for the page when you hover over it. Even if the tab is not active, once you hover over the tab, the title text is displayed. Within the head element, nest a title element with the text colored markers. So that's what it's talking about. So when you hover it over, it does this. And then you can also see right here the actual, well, I can't highlight it, of course. The actual words right here is what it'll change. And so we want a title. The title colored markers, of course. This is an American thing, so if you are Canadian, make sure that you're spelling it the same way, otherwise the little thing here won't accept your answer. I've already tried. And it said I got it wrong, so I had to delete the U. That's it, right? Just the head, nest the title. There we go. The character set attribute specifies the UTF. Yeah, we got that. The meta. Boom. Does it want name as well yet? No. Okay. Put that above the title though. Just like it is in VS Code. Ah, yeah, and then that's where we got this. Meta name viewport. Right below it. Submit. Now you're ready to start adding content to the page. Within the body, nest an H1 element, which of course we know is like the main header. It's going to be the biggest one, and that will be CSS. CSS color markers, H1. What do you mean? Oh, see, just did it. Boom. In this project, you'll work with an external CSS file to style the page. We've already created this styles.css, which of course we've already put into our VS Code here. File for you, but before you can use it, you'll need to link it to the page. So, sorry if that was loud. Nest a link element. Right. Want to do it afterwards? Yeah, I think so, right before the title. Whoops. Nope. Oh, we don't want capital either. What am I doing? Link and equals styles. CSS. Oops. href. That was my bad. rel equals style sheets. Oh my god, why did it not? You can highlight the whole thing, by the way. Even on this, you can highlight the whole word like this, and then put the things there, but we'll just Control Z if you're on Windows, of course. Undo. Boom, and then we'll check our code. Wait, what? Oh, I put style sheets. Oh, sheets, huh? Now that your external CSS file is set up, you can start styling the page. As a reminder, here's how to target a paragraph. Yes, of course. Create a CSS rule that targets the H1 element, set the text align to center. So we want H1, right? Yeah. H1, curly brackets, text, align, center. Oops. Clearly didn't get enough sleep last night. I keep screwing that up. And of course, haven't become a supporter yet. We will, like I said, eventually here. At the moment, we'll take it for free. Let's, I'm gonna start the React section on here. I just got an email about it. Either today or a few days ago or something. I don't know. I just saw it today. So, just to learn more React. Alright. Now you gotta add some elements that you'll eventually style into color markers. First, within the body element, add a div. Underneath the H1, right? Yes. And set the class. It's equal to container. Container. Idiot. There we go. Container. And that's it. Nothing else in it. It's there. Div. Next, within the div element, add another div element and give it a class of marker. Just nesting. It's time to add some color to the marker. Remember that one way to add color to an element is to use a color keyword like black, cyan, or yellow. As a reminder, here's how to target the class. Boom. Now create the CSS rule targeting that. So that will be whoops. Dot marker, curly bracket, background color. And we want it to be red. Done. Background color was applied, but since the marker div element has no content in it, it doesn't have any height by default in your marker. So we want the height property to 25 pixels. And width to 200 pixels. Your marker would look better if it was centered on the page. An easy way to do that is the margin shorthand property. Okay. Oh, just margin top, margin left. It's easy to set. sorry, in the last project, you set the margin areas of elements separately with properties like margin top and margin left. The margin shorthand property makes it easy to set multiple margin areas at the same time. So to send to the marker on the page, set its margin property to auto right. Should have remembered that. You can do that. There we go. And this will set margin top, right, bottom, left, all to auto, which they haven't said this on this yet, but CSS, everything goes top, right, bottom, left, like this. Just going clockwise, always clockwise. Top, right, bottom, left, top, right, bottom, left. Now that you've got one marker centered in the color, or with color, it's time to add the other markers. All right. Right. Oh, we should have it within the div. Am I not within? What? Oh, right. That's how we're doing, just these. Boom. Next. Well, you have 3 separate marker div elements. They look like one big rectangle. Should add some space in between them. So we just want margin. In your marker CSS rule. And the shorthand margin property has 2 values. It sets margin top and bottom to the first value and margin left and right to the second. So to the second value, so in here to set the property to 10 pixels in auto. Okay. Do we have to have a no comma? 10 pixel auto. There we go. Look at that. We're rocking. Add unique class. Okay, to give markers different colors, you will need to add a unique class to each one. Multiple classes can be added to an element by listing them in the class attribute and separating them with a space. For example, the following adds both the animal and dog classes to a div element. So div class, animal, dog. If you have multiple classes to an HTML element, the styles of the first class you list may be overwritten by later classes. To begin, add the class 1 to the first marker 1. Right? Or 1 marker. Yeah, that's what I thought. Marker 1. And then yes, marker 2. Remove the background property. Congrats. There we go. It targets class 1. Oh, what am I doing? Dot 1. Good. There we go. 2 and 3, of course. May as well copy this because we're going to be putting that on everything. It's green, right? Dot 3. Background color of blue. There are 2 main color models. The additive RGB red, green, blue model used in electronic devices, and the subtractive CMYK cyan, magenta, yellow, black model used in print. In this project, you'll work with the RGB model. This means that colors begin as black and change as different levels of red, green, and blue are introduced. An easy way to see this is with the CSS RGB function. Create a new CSS rule that targets the class container. last container. So boom. And set its background color. Background color to black with RGB 000. Is that not right? Oh, spaces. What? Dot container. Background color. Ooh, RGD. What an idiot. RGB. Ah. A function is a piece of code that can take an input and perform a special action. The CSS RGB function accepts values. Accept values or arguments for red, green, and blue. Produces a color. CSS RGB function accepts values or arguments for. Each red, green, and blue value is a number from 0 to 255. 0 means that there's 0% of that color and is black. 255 means that there's 100% of that color. In the .1 CSS rule, replace the color keyword red with the RGB function for the RGB function. Set the value of red to 255. Okay, so we'll go RGB 255 0 0. We're just gonna copy this because we're probably gonna have to do that next for 2 and 3. And so this one will be 0. $255. Oh, come on. There we go. There we go. Well, the red and blue markers look the same. The green one is much lighter than it was before. This is because the green color keyword is actually a darker shade and it's about halfway between black and the maximum value for green. In the 2 CSS rule, set the green value to RGB function, set the green value in the RGB function to 127 to lower its intensity. Okay. Bam. Now add a little more vertical space between your markers and the edge of the container elements that they're in. In the container CSS rule, use the shorthand padding. Okay. And we're going to set it to 10 pixels. Of the top and bottom padding, and set the left and right padding to 0. There we go. In the additive RGB color model, primary colors are colors that, when combined, create pure white. But for this to happen, each color needs to be at the highest intensity. Before you combine colors, set your green marker back to the pure green. So 255. Now that you have the primary RGB color, it is time to combine them. For RGB function in the dot container rule, set the red, green, blue values to the maximum of 255. Oops. Boom. Secondary colors are the colors you get when you combine primary colors. You may have noticed some secondary colors in the last step. You could change the red, green, and blue values. To create the first secondary color, yellow, update the RGB function in the 1 rule to combine pure red and pure green. Okay. There we go. To create the next secondary color, cyan. That is how you say it, right? Cyan, not cayenne, like the pepper. Cyan, I believe. That's how I always remember hearing it, seeing it, reading it. Cyan. Update the RGB function to the .2 CSS rule to combine pure green and pure blue. And to 255. To create the final secondary color, magenta, update the RGB functions to the 3 CSS rule, pure blue, pure red. Okay. Now that you're familiar with secondary colors, you'll learn how to create tertiary numbers. Tertiary colors are created by combining a primary with nearby secondary color. To create the tertiary color orange, update RGB functions in the 1 CSS rule so that the red is at the max value and set green to 127. Okay. Notice that to create orange, you had to increase the intensity of red and decrease the intensity of green values so that this is because orange is the combination of red and yellow. To create the tertiary color spring green, combined cyan with green, update the RGB function to 2 so that the blue is 127 now. And I imagine we're going to be doing the 127. The next one here, same thing. So to get violet, we're going to combine magenta and blue. So that's 127 there. And there we go. There are 3 more tertiary colors. Chartreuse green, I believe that's how you say it. Azure, and rose. So it's green and yellow, blue and cyan, red and magenta. To create chartreuse green, update the RGB function in the .1 CSS rule so that the red at 127, this is the 1, so red will be 127, and set the green to its max value, which will be 255. And now to make the azure, it is green will be 127, blue will be max. And to get a rose, which is sometimes bright pink, I imagine this is going to be 255, and this is going to be 127. Boom. Now that you've gone through all the primary, secondary, and tertiary colors on a color wheel, it'll be easier to understand other color theory concepts and how they impact design. First, in CSS Rule 1, 2, and 3, adjust the values of the RGB function so that the background color of each element is set to pure black. Oh, what am I doing? Pure black. Wait. Yeah. All 3. There we go. Color wheel is a circle where similar colors or hues are near each other and different ones are further apart. For example, pure red is between the hues rose and orange. 2 colors that are opposite from each other on the color wheel are called complementary colors. If 2 complementary colors are combined, they produce gray. But when they are placed side by side, these colors produce a strong visual contrast and appear brighter. In the RGB functions for the 1 CSS rule, set the red value to a maximum of 255 to produce red. And then in set the values for green and blue to red to for red in the RGB function 2. Set the values for green and blue, both of them, to 255. There we go. Notice that the red and cyan colors are very bright right next to each other. Yes, kind of hurts my eyes. This contrast can be distracting if it's overused on a website, and you can make text hard to read if it's placed on a complementary colored background. It's better practice to choose one color as the dominant color and use the complementary color as an accent to bring attention to the certain content of the page. First, in the H1 rule, use the RGB function to set its background color to cyan. Wait, do we still have that as the... Dang it. What am I doing? And cyan was the RGB 0, 255, 255, right? Oh, I guess. I'll just do this. There we go. Yeah, so I was. Dang it. I do have to do the RGB, but it was 255. Okay. Next, in the 1 CSS rule, use the RGB functions to set the background color to black, and in the 2 CSS rule, use the RGB function to set the background color to red. So in 1, we want it to be black. Oops, 0, and we want this one to be red. Notice how your eyes are naturally drawn to the red color in the center. When designing a site, you can use this effect to draw attention to the important headings, buttons, or links. There are several other important color combinations outside of complementary colors, but you'll learn those in a bit later. For now, use the RGB function in the 2 CSS rule to set the background color to black. All right. Okay. And in the H1 CSS rule, remove the background color property and value to go back to the default white color. Okay, now it's time to add other details to the markers, starting with the first one. In the first marker div element, change the class 1 to red. Update the 1 CSS rule to red. Add RGB function to the red so that the red value is at the max. And next, change the 2 to green, of course. Green and the other one blue. And then we want 255. And oh, right, what am I doing? Green. Blue. Ugh. Can't change those yet. Alright, we're going too far ahead here. Too far ahead. Okay, a very common way to apply color to an element with CSS is with a hexadecimal or hex value. Well, hex values sound complicated. They're just another way of RGB values. another form of them. Hex colors values start with a hash or number symbol, hashtag, whatever you want to call it, character, and takes 6 characters from 0 to 9 and A to F. That's because this is 10 through 15, if you haven't learned any hexadecimal. The first pair of characters represent red, the second pair represent green, and the third pair represent blue. For example, blah, blah, blah. 4B5320. In the green class selector, set the background color property to a hex code with the values 00FF00, FF being full. This might be 15s. What are we doing here again? Sorry. We want the boom 00FF00. Okay, you may already be familiar with decimal or base 10 values, which go from 0 to 9, hexadecimal 16. Okay, so they actually teach you a little bit about it. Cool. With the hex color 000%, FF is 100%, so it translates to 02550. Lower the intensity of the green by setting the value to 7, which is half. Same thing as 127 to 255. Oops, 7F. Perfect. The HSL color model, or hue, saturation, and lightness, is another way to represent color. CSS HSL function accepts 3 values: a number from 0 to 360 for hue, a percentage from 0 to 100 for saturation, and a percentage from 0 to 100 for lightness. If you imagine a color wheel, the hue red is 0 degrees green, or green is at 120 degrees, and blue is at 240 degrees. Saturation is the intensity of the color from 0% or gray to 100% for pure color. You must add the percent sign to the saturation and lightness values. Lightness is how bright a color appears, from 0% or complete black to 100% complete white, with 50% being neutral. In the .blue CSS, we'll use the HSL function to change the background color. Okay, so they're making us use all of them. I like that. I like that. So what is it? HSL, and we put it in like this, and we want to set the hue to 240, 100% saturation. Where's the percent? There we go. And lightness will be 50%. There we go. We learn a few ways to set flat colors in CSS, but you can also use color transitions or gradients on an element. A gradient is when one color transitions to another. The CSS linear gradient function lets you control the direction of the transition along a line and which colors are used. One thing to remember is that linear gradient functions actually create an image element. Okay, that's something to remember. And is usually paired with the background. Usually paired with the background property, which can accept an image as a value. If the .red CSS rule, in the .red CSS rule, change the background color property to background. There we go. Got ourselves a little break for 2 seconds here. Oh, a little shake there. That's fine. Okay. The linear gradient function is very flexible. Here is the basic syntax you'll use in this tutorial. Linear gradient, gradient direction, color 1, color 2, etc. Okay. Gradient direction is the direction of the line used for the transition. Color 1 and color 2 are color arguments, which are the colors that will be used in the transition itself. These can be any type of color, including color keywords, hex, RGB, or HSL. Now you'll apply a red to green gradient along 90-degree line to the first marker. First, in the .red CSS rule, set the background property to linear gradient. Pass in the, so it would be 90 degrees. Oh, okay. It's because you don't leave those in. Oh yeah, I guess, what am I doing? Those wouldn't even be properties because it had to be an actual color. You use the RGB function colors of this gradient. In the linear gradient function, you use function set to the first color to pure red. Actually, let's go. I don't see gradient because the linear color function needs two colors, so the next one, color to pure green. Okay, so you can see it goes into the orange and stuff in the middle there and then back out. As you can see, the linear gradient function produces a smooth red-green gradient, while the linear gradient function needs a minimum of two colors to work. It can accept more. So use the RGB function to add pure blue as the third color. Okay. Shouldn't that work? Add pure blue as the third color argument to the linear gradient function, right? What? RGB 00 255 255 and 0 255 00. I don't know what I did. Oh. Oh. There we go. Color stops allow you to fine-tune where colors are placed along the gradient line. There are length unit like pixels or percentages that follow a color in the linear gradient function. For example, in this red-black gradient, the transition from red to black takes place 90% at the 90% point along the gradient line, so red takes up most of the available space. In the linear gradient function, add 75% color stop after the first red argument, and don't add color stops to the other colors. Okay, so boom, 90%. What? It worked. Oh, 75. Whoops. I went with 90 because I was reading 90. My bad. 75%. Boom. There we go. There we are. Huh? Also, I guess we should probably throw this on into chat. So, boom. Okay. So, now that you know the basics of the linear gradient function and color stops work, you can use them to make the markers look more realistic. In the gradient or linear gradient function, set gradient direction to 180 degrees. Next, set the color stop for red to 0%. And the color stop for blue 100%. 180 degrees. 0%. What am I doing wrong? Background. Let me see if this changes. Oh! 0, I completely skipped the green part. My bad. Seriously, I need more sleep next time I get on here. Now that the color stops are set, you'll apply different shades of red to each color argument in the linear gradient function. The shades in the top and bottom edges of the marker will be darker. So top and bottom edges darker, while the ones in the middle will be lighter, as if there's a light above it. Okay, cool. For the first color argument, which is currently pure red, set the value to 122. Green will be 74. Do not like this. There we go. And then this one to 14. There we go. And now the linear gradient, update the RGB function so that it's red is 245, green is 62, and this is 113. RGB function, so the value of red is 162. Green is 27, and blue is also. Oh, there it is. Looking good. Looking good. Making it shiny. Oh, so we're just changing it to background. There we go. Degrees. First one will be 55. This will be 68. And this will be 0D for blue. What? Oh, hex color. I'm an idiot. Why did I not read that properly? There we go. I think I just need some Oh, I'm an idiot. I probably didn't need to get rid of all that, but... Yeah, I really need some caffeine. Might take a little break. 5 minutes after we get these colors all set up here. Second color argument is a hex color code with the value 71 F5 Brock Lesnar green and 3E for blue. Okay, so we want 71 F5 and 3E. And the third color, we are going for 11 6C. It's going to be a 6C color. There we go. Okay, so now with the gradient, even without the color stops, you might have noticed that the colors for the green marker transition at the same points as the red marker. First color starts at 0%, second color is in the middle at 50%, and the last is at the end at 100% of the gradient line. Then your gradient function automatically calculates these values for you. Place colors evenly along the gradient by the line. In the .red CSS, we'll remove the 3 color stops from the... Okay, so we're just going to remove these. Whoop. There we go. If no gradient direction argument is provided to the linear gradient function, it arranges colors from top to bottom along the 180 degrees, so we don't have to put that either, right? So clean up your code a little more by removing the gradient direction for both linear gradient functions. So can we just completely delete them, or do we have to... Yeah. Now you'll apply a gradient to the blue marker, this time using HSL. Okay, background. Change this to background. Submit, go. So we want 186. We want 76%. And we want 16% for the lightness. Oh, right. I forgot to write linear gradient. Okay, as the second color argument, pass in the HSL. And we want 60% for lightness, and we want 90% for saturation, and 223 for the hue. And as the third color argument, we want a lightness of 42%. And we want the saturation of 56 and the hue of 240. Looking good. It's looking good. Okay, I'm gonna take a quick little break here. Just give me a few minutes. I'll keep the music going for you. Alright, we are back. Okay. So, now that the markers have the correct colors, it's time to build the marker sleeves. Start with the red marker inside the red marker div. Create a new div, of course. Sleeve, okay. The class. Sleeve. And then boom. There we go. So create a new CSS rule that targets the class sleeve. Set the width to 110 pixels. Dot sleeve. And we want width of 110 pixels. And we want a height of 10 pixels? 25. What? Okay, to make the marker look more realistic, give these sleeves a transparent white color. First, set the sleeves element's background color. So background color, and set it to white. White. Congrats. Okay, opacity describes how opaque or non-transparent something is. For example, a solid wall is opaque and no light can pass through it, but a drinking glass is much more transparent. You can see through the glass to the other side with the CSS opacity property. So, you know we're going to add that. Just put it in there. You can control how opaque or transparent an element is. With the value 0 or 0%, the element will be completely transparent, and at 1.0 or 100%, the element will be completely opaque like it is by default. In the .sleeve CSS rule, set the opacity property to 0.5. Okay, there we go. Now we've got that. Set that. Another way to set opacity for an element is with the alpha channel. Similar to the opacity property, the alpha channel controls how transparent or opaque a color is. You've already set sleeves opacity with the name color and the opacity property, but you can add an alpha channel to the CSS property inside the .sleeve rule. Remove the opacity property and value. Go. You're already familiar with using RGB functions to set the color. To add an alpha channel to the RGB color, use the RGBA function instead. The RGBA function works just like the RGB function, but takes one more number from 0 to 1.0 for the alpha channel. Imagine we have to have the 0.0 because 90 would be like 0.9 and stuff. RGBA, red, green, blue, alpha. So, you can also use an alpha channel with HSL and hex colors. See how to do that soon, of course, with the green and blue. We'll be using each of those. So in the .sleeve rule, use the RGBA function to set the background color property to pure white. So RGBA, and we want 0. Oh man. 0. Why did I do it again? And then 50%, so 0.5, right? Oh, I have to have the 0.5. Oh, it's 255. What am I doing? Why black? I'm going pure black, 255. We want all the colors. White is all the colors. Black is none of the colors. There we go. Your sleeve is looking good, but it'll look even better if it was positioned more towards the right side of the marker, One way to do this is add another element before the sleeve to push it to the right. Add a new div with the class cap before the sleeve div element. Okay. That's what it was, right? Cap. Yeah. Here we go. Create a new CSS rule dot cap. Let's create the rule and set the width to, what is it, 60 pixels? And the height to 25 pixels. There we go. 78, we're getting there. I think there was like 94 or something like that. It looks like your sleeve disappeared, but don't worry, it's still there. What happened is that your new cap div is taking up the entire width of the marker and is pushing the sleeve down to the next line. So it's somewhere in here. This is because the default display property for div element is block. So when two block elements are next to each other, they stack like actual blocks. For example, your marker elements are all stacked on top of each other. So to position two div elements the same, set their display property to inline block. So create a new rule to target both cap and sleeve. Oops. Dot cap. Dot sleeve. And it will be display inline block. There we go. In the last project, you learned a little bit about the borders and the border color property. All HTML elements have borders, though they're usually set to none by default. With CSS, you can control all aspects of an element's border and set the border on all sides, or just one side at a time. For a border to be visible, you need to set the width and style. So in this sleeve rule, border left width, property 10 pixels. Border left width 10. Don't know why I hit enter there. There we go. Borders have several styles to choose from. You can make your border solid line, but you can also use a dashed or dotted line if you prefer. Solid lines are probably the most common. In the dot sleeve, a CSS rule, add the border left style with the value solid. Go. Your border should be visible now. If no color is set, black is used by default, but to make your code more readable, it's better to set the border color explicitly. In the dot sleeve CSS rule, border left color black. Even though we want it black, set it to black just because it looks better. The border left shorthand property lets you set the left border's width, style, and color at the same time. Okay, so it's just a blanket term for all border left. Width, style, color. So we will just get rid of these and just go border left. And the width, shit, what was the width of it? Oh, poop. What was the lid? So we want, just go with that. Boom. Your marker's looking good. But to make it look even More realistic, you can change the border style to double solid borders. For the border left shorthand property, change the border style value from solid to double. There we go, so now it's looking more like a Crayola marker. The black color of your border looks pretty harsh against the more transparent sleeve. You can use an alpha channel to lower the opacity of the black border. For the border left shorthand, use RGBA. So, and that will be red is 0, 0, 0, and 75%. There we go. Awesome, your red marker is looking good. Now all you need to do is add the caps and sleeves to your other markers. There we go. Okay. Last thing you'll do is add a slight shadow to each marker to make them look even more realistic. The shadow box property lets you apply one or more shadows around an element. Here is basic syntax. Box shadow. Offset X, offset Y, and then the color. Here's how the offset X and offset Y values work. Both offset X and offset Y accept number values in pixels, px, and other CS units. A positive offset X value moves the shadow right, and a negative value moves it left. So, classic X and Y. Positive will move it up, or moves the shadow down rather, and a negative moves it up. If you want a value of 0 for any or both offset X, offset Y, you don't need to add a unit. Every browser understands that 0 means no change. Okay. So the height and width of the shadow is determined by the height and width of the element it's applied to. You can also use an optional spread radius value to spread out the reach of the shadow. More on that later. Okay, start by adding a simple shadow to the red marker. And so we want to go boom, box shadow. And we want it to be, sorry, just take a quick look at it. Offset X, offset Y color. No things, okay. So 5 pixels. And offset Y is also 5 pixels. And then red. Here we go. So to offset it here, as you can see, here. Oops. Okay, there we go. So as you can see, it's about 5 pixels. It's offset this way and downward because we used the positives. And so it looks like it's lifting off where the light is casting the shadow from this way. Beauty. I don't know why I'm not doing it just in full screen like that for you. May as well, right? As you can see, you added a simple red shadow around your marker. That's 5 pixels to the right, 5 pixels down. But if you wanted to position your shadow on the opposite side, you could do the negative values. So now we're just going to set this to negative, negative. And as you can see, it moved over. So now it looks like shadow's coming up this way. Notice that the edges of the shadow are sharp. This is because there is an optional blur radius, of course. So offset, offset, blur, color. Offset, offset, blur, color. 5 pixels for the boom, and so we want the box shadow. And we pixel, 5 pixel, 5 pixel, and then green. Oh yeah, there we go. Now it actually looks like a shadow, a bit of a shadow. Much better than the other one there. Why'd you stop? Did it come to a... Oh, let's just go to the next page of music, I guess. Sorry about that. Music stopped. Okay. So, but what if you wanted to expand the shadow out further? You can do that with the optional spread radius value. Okay, so now we're gonna learn, so it's offset, offset, blur, spread, color. Like blur radius, spread radius defaults to 0 if it isn't included. Practice by adding 5 pixel shadow directly around the blue marker. So in the blue CSS rule, the box shadow, and we want 0, 0, 0. Let's see if that works, or do I have to put the PX? Nope. Becoming the supporter. This one's gonna put us to sleep, isn't it? Okay, now that you're familiar with the shadow box property, you can finalize the shadow starting with the one for the red marker. So we want offset 0, 0. Zero, 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 20 pixels, red. Oops. Spread radius is 0, so we don't even need that one. And red. Cool, now it looks like it's like lit up almost. Oh, we do have to specify before we go into the red, okay. There we go. RGBA, and we want 83, 14, 14, 0.8. Throw in 0, 0. 0, 0, 20. There we go. And for the green markers box shadow property, replace the name color with the hex color code. Of 3B 7E plenty. Oh, CC, right, the alpha channel. Okay, now this one, we want the HSLA is the 223, 59%. 31% and 0.8. Boom. Wait, what is this? Alright. That was weird that it didn't... It's not showing that I did that. That's strange, but okay. Why is it not? Okay. There we go. Now hopefully that does it. That was strange. Okay. Go back to these. Does it show that I finished that now? Good. Okay. So let's do this. Style sheets. Let's just boom. Boom. Don't like have to do that to do this last little bit, but 223, 59, 31. Go. S. Now let's go to the terminal. Boom, there it is. We made them. Beauty. Okay. So, wasn't so bad. Wasn't so bad at all. Boom, submit. And we've done that one. Do this one and this one another on Friday probably. Friday, that's what we'll do. So we are going to call it there for today, everyone. That was a good one, and hopefully you guys will join me again. Sorry, Wednesday. Again, I need a better sleep. Tuesday, so there we go. So yes, we will be back in a few days. Which we'll go over some more, probably CSS stuff. Just keep working through this. I'm going to be doing some other React and stuff like that off the stream. But for now, that's all good for today. So you guys have a good one, and we will talk to you guys soon.